Thanks for having me, Chris. Must be pretty busy, huh? This whole month with the Valorant anniversary and with the Wild Rift Esports for you.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, but it doesn't feel that busy. It's
Oh,
like
really?
it's one of those things where when you're having fun, right? It's
Mhm.
like you do suddenly it's August and you're like, what happened to June, July? And then you open up your Facebook, Instagram, you see all the great memories that you were there, right? Like that's where we are now, man.
That's awesome. So, first of all, I'd like to congratulate for the Valorant 1 year anniversary. How's the 12 months been for you with the esports and maybe the game as well?
So it's been an amazing 12 months for me personally, Valorant as a game, but like really as a Southeast Asia guy as well, right?
Yeah.
And gosh, 12 months ago, like we really weren't sure about Valorant, right?
Oh,
Like we thought it would be a good game, but we didn't think we weren't sure how well it would land because there are a lot of great tactical shooters out there, right? And over the months after we launched, it was always just like surprise after surprise after surprise, and we just kept delighting. And so now we have like 14 million active PC players now,
that's
and they
insane.
played
Yeah.
like half a billion games played in the first year, man. It's
Mhm.
crazy, right? And it's like it's also like pretty amazing if you think about it as how we've been like really successful and lucky in Indonesia, which we normally think of as like a mobile market, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes you just are lucky enough to have a product that like hits people in the right way, right, and gives them something that is they're familiar with, but enough new things to oh, this is actually like refreshes and redefines what I think a
Mhm.
shooter could be.
Yeah.
And we see that not only with the gameplay from Indonesia, but also with like the community and collegiate scene that we see popping up in Indonesia, and of course our esports, right?
Yep.
And so always super exciting to see what Indonesian play is like. And I'm hoping that as we get through the next like couple months of Valorant Champions Tour, where we go through Challengers 3, Valorant Masters 3, and then the Champions Tour, we'll start seeing like Indonesian squads making a big noise on the global scene.
Hopefully, we're praying for that. Uh, so it's been very short, 12 months. It hasn't been long. But has this 12-month set tone for you guys for the next 12 months? Maybe, you guys already have, sort of a small blueprint for what's 2022 going to be like for Valorant esports, maybe in Southeast Asia.
So the answer is we have started a blueprint for 2022 and 2023. But I know
That's
that the follow-up question you're going to be is like, oh, is there something we can share with the fans? And I will say, I cannot, bro. I cannot, right? Because
not
I
even a
also
little
want to,
bit.
oh man, like the thing is, if we like the moment, like there are so many things changing right now, like with the world and with what our goals are and how we prioritize, etc., that it's really premature, and it's more like right now looking doing the research and the homework and just trying to like see what are the things we can do to really delight and surprise our players and fans across the world, right? Like I feel like you will also like on our birthday we also announced that there will be such a thing called Valorant Mobile, but
Yeah.
I really don't know more about that than what I just told you, that there is a thing that is called Valorant Mobile, right? And just like thinking about like how how much we feel appreciated by Indonesian players with Valorant, the PC game, that
Mhm.
we know that we have really high expectations, or like the fans have really high expectations of what we'll do with mobile. So it's
For
like
sure.
crossing T's, dotting I's, like making like hoping, praying,
Yeah.
etc. All that stuff, man. It's hard.
Okay.
It's like important work we do.
So, all right, maybe let's not talk about 2022 and 2023. What about for the next 6 months? It's been halfway through 2021. Is there any, maybe what's the future will look like in the next 6 months for Valorant esports in Southeast
So,
Asia, maybe.
so we are starting on Valorant Challengers 3 right now, which will select our representatives to go to Valorant Masters 3 in Berlin, right? And for Valorant Masters 3, instead of the one team we sent to Valorant Masters 2 in Reykjavik, we're sending 2 teams. And then from there, we will start qualifying the final representatives for the region to go to Valorant Champions, which is at the end of the year. And the location, I do not believe, has been disclosed yet, right? So that's
Yeah.
on the professional level. However, globally, we are also working on a program called Game Changers, which is an opportunity for women to experience, develop, and showcase their own Valorant skills. Because I think like a special characteristic of our part of the world is that in Valorant, we've got a lot of talented women gamers out there,
Oh yeah.
right? And so like building up that scene and understanding how to like really inspire and showcase and just create an even playing field for all gamers everywhere is like what we'll be able to like bring to the field in the next 3-4 months. And some of that work is already being done by some of our partners like the FSL, which runs like a Valorant international league across the region for females.
That's gonna be awesome. So I just want to clarify. So you said that there's gonna be 2 Southeast Asia representatives in Berlin.
Yes.
Oh, I just know that. It's gonna be awesome.
And the and I think that the competition for those 2 slots is actually pretty good, and so it's no clear favorite, right? What we found in Masters 2 is the one team that we sent can play, and if thing
Oh, yeah.
and so we we want to continue to show people that our players can make a big noise when they get to that global stage, and because the top grouping is tight. It could be like the 2 teams could be teams from Indonesia or from Singapore or from Thailand. There's like, those are like, of course there are other markets, etc. But it could be from any of these markets. But I'm confident that whoever represents us will not let us down.
So maybe shifting a little bit to Master Reykjavik again. You talk about X10 with their performance. They were, I would say, brilliant. We because a lot of people, you could say, they don't expect much with Southeast Asia in terms of tactical shooters, because maybe we're more of a mobile games, and X10 really, prove people wrong. I would say, I would ask you, were you cheering for them during the game?
Heck yeah. Yeah. Right. And like I think you are right that people tend to underestimate our talent. Right. But there's also the world where in the tactical shooter world, it's kind of like split up. The global scene isn't very global, right? You have certain shooters that are popular in North America, some in Europe, some in Asia, right? Some only in Korea, some only in China, etc.
Yeah.
And our opportunity here is like to really create one of the first truly international and global FPS esports in the world. So it doesn't surprise me that a lot of people in the world don't know that we got game, right? But beyond just having game, like Padipan in particular has like an outsized personality because I don't know, man. I grew up in America and I was supposed to be like quiet and a good student, but I turned out to be noisy and a bad student, right? Because people, right? I like, and so people think that like our players should be like quiet and just like be good students, but like Padipan, he just jumped onto the stage, made a big noise, right? Like did some magic tricks, right? Like,
Yeah.
like and people are like, these guys are like really can be larger than life, right? And at the end of the day, my job is to take this raw talent and give them opportunities to showcase what the peak performance can look like and be celebrated as an esports professional, right? And the more we can just showcase like the excitement and the passion of our players, the more I think it's easier for them to make fans, and it makes me prouder to be a Southeast Asian player, right?
Yep.
And like, what did you think? Were you supporting XN? Like,
Oh heck
what
yeah,
was your
yeah.
situation,
I
bro?
was cheering for them the whole time. I was so sad they got out, but they gave a really good fight. People even against some of the the big teams, from the NA, and even people thought that they're gonna just obliterate them when they're playing Fanatics. They gave a good fight. They're showing qualities. This is not a team that we usually see on LAN all the time, but that's their first LAN tournament, and they're already playing like that's like their 10 LAN tournaments or something like that. So yeah, they were amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, like I guess like talking about the excitement from the players, you can see it from the fans as well. With the most of the matches averaging around like 500K viewerships. Even the finals reach peak viewership with 1 million viewership. Was that beyond your expectation, or was that like just about right?
So I am the head of Southeast Asia, so I don't have expectations for the global viewers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, I'm like not so different from you. The more people who watch, the more excited I get,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But for me, I was like excited but worried. And I'll tell you why. Excited, we have a great team going to represent us in Southeast Asia, but the time zone for us, because it was Iceland, wasn't great, right?
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
I wasn't excited about like starting to watch matches at 10 or 11 p.m.
Yeah.
But the timing wasn't exciting, but the gameplay was. And I stood up and like, the next morning, 4 coffees later, a Red Bull and like, what have you. Excuse me. But despite the time zone, the viewership from our part of the world was great. Right? I can't share with you the exact breakdown, but the idea that like like tens of thousands, if not like 100,000 people were watching from like Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, like Singapore at later times, right? Like just shows me that if we were at a reasonable time, if we're able to like, which hopefully we'll be able to start having like some of these global events in our part of the world, then the viewership will just skyrocket, right? But right now it's just like it's the challenge of having an international event, right? We just have to keep moving it around to make it work. But I'm like absolutely shocked and
Mhm.
humbled by the number of players who just like took on the inconvenience and drank the 4 coffees and the Red Bull the next morning so that they could like be good, like office workers, like students, et cetera, et cetera.
Me included.
But yeah, right? You know,
Yeah.
uh, it's a great sign for like the first LAN event in Valorant history.
Yep. And how do you think? I guess like you could say that maybe other part of the teams, big names like Fanatics, Liquid, Sentinels could play part with the excitements of the fans. How do you think this could, this global event could translate to more the regional event? And maybe we can bring in more viewership for Master, for people cheering for their own team, or even other teams outside of their countries. How do you think Riot can help with the growth regionally?
So there are two ways to look at it, right? And I think the schools of thought there are organizations where they have a lot of tournaments that are not linked, right? So you have like local tournament in like one in Asia, local tournament in like North Africa, local tournament in Europe, et cetera, et cetera. And then they're not directly linked. And then you might achieve a circuit point kind of thing. But that means the stakes are limited for one specific tournament. The Valorant competitive ecosystem is built that if you want to go to the World Championship from SEA, you have to qualify through challengers and win a regional challengers and continue to go up, right? So that our regional tournaments are very important, right? Our local markets are very important because if you want to become the world champion, you have to go through here. versus other tournament systems where it's not quite so structured. As we get more slots, that just increases the interest and stakes into competing at the regional tournaments. Now, to your second point, I think when you begin a new esport, people love the game, and people also cheer for teams that are similar to them, right? Like us talking about X10, we are Southeast Asians. We are not Thai, and X10 is a Thai team, but they're most similar to us, therefore we cheer for them, right? And that's at the beginning, but as what we see with like some of our other esports titles, as time goes on, the love of the game and love of teams can transcend national identity, right? And I say, like, even with like football, like, I'm sure there are a lot of Manchester United fans in England, but there are also a lot of Manchester United fans in like Singapore and in Thailand. Right? I don't know about Indonesia football fandom, right? So
We're massive here, so
right?
yeah.
But it's like because Manchester United is not seen as an English team sometimes. It is just seen as a global football powerhouse, right? But it's taken football how many decades to get there, right? And for Riot, when we develop our esports, we kind of want to see those kind of like transnational, international, global brands for teams be developed by having players with good personalities, strong teams, right? So that like the competitive success, like we create opportunities and platforms for quality to rise, right? And like, but the quality has to rise through a very structured competitive format so that we like be champion of Indonesia, great. Be champion of Southeast Asia, even greater. Okay, now you can challenge the rest of the world, et cetera, and so forth. Does that make sense?
I mean, I guess you could say it the same like Sentinels, Fnatic, Liquid, and other, NA team or Europe and NA team, and even the Brazilian team and Korean team. They're having fans from all around the world now. Like I'm seeing people cheering for New Turn to, become the underdog and maybe go all the way to the finals. We didn't see that, but they were giving such a good fight. But I think that's what we're hoping to see more in Valorant. It's just like team is just not like you don't just represent. I mean, you will represent the nationality, but it will just, people from other countries will want to cheer for you as well, just because you love the players, you love the team, you love their play style. Maybe they bring in something different from other teams. Like, we're seeing it in Europe. They bring in like the more strategical, and maybe the NA is more, gunfights and more, puggy kind of game style, and those kind of clash would make people pick what kind of preferences you want, and hopefully we can see that more in Southeast Asian team as well.
And it's crazy, man. We're only 5 months into like Valorant
Yeah.
Champions, right?
Yep.
Like, because over time you also have like the great rivalries between teams, rivalries between players as they move around, right? Those storylines, like it's like we just kind of like are meeting these organizations. These organizations are just meeting each other for the first time. But imagine a world where there's an X10 Fnatic rematch in like Berlin, right?
Yeah.
And then like imagine if X10 wins, then that's like best of 3, see you at champions or something like that, right? Like then so like it just like I'm just getting too excited, bro. I'm just getting too excited.
All right. So I guess if we're talking about Southeast Asia esports, I mean, it's safe to say that the benchmark is mobile games, right? Mobile esports, we talk about other games. They're having such big numbers of followers. Not only the players, but also, the viewership, people that don't play the games, but just want to watch team plays. Is that maybe some things that Riot Games also see that, we want to top them. We want to be able, or maybe not top them, maybe equal their numbers for Valorant esports.
I think we want to, like, at Riot, we want to be the most player-focused company in the world, right? And I think that the best way for us to serve players is not to look at competitors and think about, oh, what are their numbers, right? I think it is useful for us to say, oh, look at our competitors. What are they doing well that we can learn from, right? But those learnings go back to understanding what our players want and need, and will really make them like happier, right? And then we just want to continue to grow and be part of our players' lives for like not months, not years, but decades, right? And it our competitors, especially mobile, are very successful, right? And it would be very like we're not so overconfident that we think that we cannot learn from them, right? Our job is only started with Valorant, right? Our job is just really just started with Valorant, and we will just continue to invest and grow that market, that game for our players, for our spectators, for our esports teams, etc. And then sometime in the future, we will launch Valorant Mobile and continue on that long journey together. And hopefully it'll be decades, not years, not months, right? Certainly not weeks, and how we go.
Okay, I guess Valorant is like released during the pandemic, and with the pandemic still ongoing right now, we're aware that online tournaments is still the only way to go. Do you think this is actually helping the growth of Valorant, or it actually hampers the growth of Valorant esports?
On one side, when you only have offline tournaments, you have to, like, it becomes a burden for the teams to all go to one place to compete, right? And in a small country, and I'm going to just choose the smallest country that we have in Southeast Asia, Singapore, that's not a problem, right? But then when you have a bigger country, like, let's say Indonesia, it becomes much more of a problem. And then you're only able to have compete the teams that are based in Jakarta, right? And you're missing a lot of the player base and the talent. So when we go online, then we can have a broader selection of teams to compete, right? So that's like the benefit of online. With offline, I think the production quality tends to suffer a bit, right? Just because we're not able to like invest in like all of the broadcast settings, et cetera, like I think that this interview we're having now would be much better if you and I were in the same place with like 4 coffees and a Red Bull, right? Because man, if you see 4 coffees and a Red Bull, it'll be a show. I'll tell you that. Right? But and like both of these things are qualities. Like you want to have the best talent in a competition, and you want the broadcast to look good, and it's hard to have both, right? We spend a lot of time optimizing like systems on the back end so we can continue to have a great show that is stable and competitively fair for our players and fans. Part of that planning is always to try to find any opportunities for us to have LAN events. Because on a personal note, Ivan, I really like LAN events. I think there's just an excitement that an online tournament cannot capture, right? But we have to deal in the reality, in the world that we live in, not the real world that we wish we lived in.
So I guess in the perfect world without COVID, or maybe COVID getting hampered a little bit, you guys would prefer having more LAN tournaments than online tournaments?
I would prefer to have more LAN tournaments because I think it will be a better, more exciting show, right?
We've seen that in Reykjavik.
Reykjavik, but also in a lot of our other tournaments, right? It'll be more an exciting show. That being said, I would also want us to be very thoughtful on the qualification of teams into the offline events so that we can maximize like the opportunities for players to compete all across our region, right? And of course, we can't get the people who live on the tallest mountains and the most remote islands, and like my family in a rice in a tea plantation somewhere. But like we're always like balancing like how do we get an exciting show against just the safety and the realities of the world we live in.
I guess maybe because we've seen an offline tournament held in Korea for Valorant. Maybe is there a way for Riot to create a safe environment for LAN tournaments? Maybe just for the playoffs, for the top 4 games in Southeast Asia Masters. Is that possible?
I mean, I think it's possible, right? Like so, but like what goes into like this decision, right? I think the first thing is what is the most safe approach for our players, right? Second thing is logistically, is it possible to like get the equipment, get the players in? Because I like one of the things that gives me pause and I'm reluctant about, Ivan, is imagine you're a professional player and it takes, and we have a 1-week tournament, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to quarantine 2 weeks to get in, and then you fly home and you quarantine again for 2 weeks. In a situation where we can make that kind of like pain less and optimize for it, so it's got to be safe and also practical for our players, right? Because we serve players, right? Our pros are like our role models, our heroes, our champions that we're trying to push out there. And so we should really see it as a privilege to be able to work with them and also protect them a bit, right? I want these guys to have like long careers, and that their longevity and sustainability of what they're doing now, that's my responsibility and Riot's responsibility, et cetera, to make sure that they're like physically and mentally safe.
Yeah. All right. I guess so. We've seen Reykjavik Masters. We're going to see Berlin, maybe Southeast Asia as the host of Masters soon.
Well, for Masters, there are only 2 more. There's only 1 more Masters this year, and that's Berlin, right? So definitely not this year, right?
Yep. Hey,
but we're like, if we keep growing and like performing at international events, I like it's going to make my job, well, my ambition easier to achieve, because I think you and I both have the same ambition, right? We both like offline events. We're both SEA players. Right, like it would be hype as heck, man. Right, but we also have to continue to consider not just the excitement that would be for players, but just the unfortunate practical realities that we're working through, and that's part of that research planning thing that I'm talking about, right? Just like what are our guesses and predictions of how the world will be open or closed in 2022. And that part of my job is not as fun as you think.
All right. I guess that's all that I have for the questions for you. Really appreciate your time, Chris. Thanks for answering. It's been really nice.
Oh, man. Thank you for your time.